And I'm going to start this. And if you guys want to turn cameras up, whatever you want to do, is fine. So, all right, we're going to get started. Thank you in advance. I appreciate it.
Let's go. Absolutely.
All right, let's go. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. If you want to take a second or two and drop in where you're zooming in from, you can do that in our Q&A box. It's always fun to see where we have families visiting us from, especially during these webinars. We'll get started in just a minute as people start entering. Just going to give this one more minute as people are still entering the room. Okay, I think we can get started. We're a couple minutes after 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining us for our first of the academic year of the Villanova Family Webinar Series. This series is going to continue throughout the academic year with specific focuses on different aspects of Villanova University, education, academics, and as well as student life components. I hope that you'll be able to join us throughout the year. Next week is our next event where we'll be taking families probably more from a first year and second year perspective through fraternity and sorority life here on campus and the opportunities that that affords to some of our families and children or students here on campus. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to my incredible campus partners in the Office of Education Abroad. I love this aspect of our university because it really demonstrates that our campus is wide open and it expands beyond the Route 30 Lancaster Avenue perimeter that surrounds us. There really is this global perspective where our students are brought into a whole other world where they can understand and be more informed about the politics, the religion, the art, the culture that informs so much of what we learn and what we teach here on campus. So I can't wait for you to meet them. I can't wait for you to travel along with them where your students may be able to go and take their Villanova education. So Liz, Levi, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to hand this over to you now.
Great. Thank you so much, Karita, and thank you so much for the Parent and Family Relations Office for inviting us to present this evening. Welcome, families. We're excited to be here to talk to you about the opportunities that are available to Villanova students in study abroad. So my name is Liz Campanella, and I am the director in the Office of Education Abroad. I've actually been at Villanova for 20 years. I'm working in the study abroad universe, but I've been at Villanova a little bit longer too, because I'm also a two-time graduate of Villanova, also a study abroad alum from Villanova's study abroad program. So that makes it extra special that I have this opportunity to be able to work with your students and kind of help guide them in the experiences and just the various opportunities that they have to explore beyond that Lancaster Avenue. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Levi Brodigan, to allow him to introduce himself before we get started.
Thank you, Karita, for that introduction. Thanks, Liz. My name is Levi Brodigan. I'm the associate director here at Villanova, and I've actually been here 22 years. I don't have the pleasure of extending into undergrad or graduate programming, but I have been here for a while as well. And I will say that's a really neat aspect of our office because we have a lot of experience working with many students, many programs. And I hope you see that throughout the course of this presentation. I also hope you see just the sheer enthusiasm that we have for these opportunities. The power of international educational exchange is there's so many cliches that you could possibly say. It's transforming, it's life-changing. And I hope that for those of you who have students here that take on this opportunity, I hope you see that as well. So thank you. We're excited to get going with this presentation.
So we'll go ahead and get started and kind of give you a little bit of a foundation of how we approach study abroad, just so you can understand how we talk to your students about study abroad, and that you can also help us sort of emphasize some of these underlying principles that we want to encourage students to think about when they're planning for their study abroad, when they're choosing to study abroad. So we ask all of the students that come into our office, what do you want to do? So it doesn't necessarily mean where do you want to go, but it's more getting them to think about what are their goals, what are their aspirations, how does study abroad fit into their academic degree, their long-term plans, their personal growth, maybe their language skills. Things along those lines are great things for us to hear from our students so that we can better help them choose a study abroad program that might work best with their unique situation. We do meet with each student on an individual basis, or at least we have the opportunity to meet with each student on an individual basis, whether that's with an advisor in our office or with a faculty program coordinator who coordinates one of our faculty-led summer programs, which we'll introduce you to later. So all of our students have the opportunity to get an individualized advising experience. So it's really not a one-size-fits-all kind of choosing a program. Now, in some instances, there are best programs for best majors. And again, we'll kind of go into some of those nuances and variances there. But we really do want to focus on the individual student, make sure that they're choosing an opportunity and experience that really does fit their own needs, their goals, their life experiences, what they've done in the past, how much they can push themselves, how much they need a safety net. We're really here to help identify those different programs and opportunities that will work best for your student. And one of the big things that we do also say in our office is that we're not a travel agent. So when a student comes into our office and says, I want to ski the Alps, well, it's like, well, that's really great, but that's not exactly academically founded, right? So we want to make sure that our students are emphasizing the academics and the academic component within their study abroad program selection, because it is, in fact, and I always say this to students, that the first word in study abroad is study. So we do want to make sure that there's that integration between what they're studying here and what they can bring back to their Villanova degree. I'm going to we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to focus. I'm going to introduce you to our framework. And our framework is really how we like to position the various goals that students can think about when they're planning for their study abroad, both in like a pre-departure sense, like what do I want to gain from my experience? How will my program help me meet objectives that I want to obtain? But then also in a returning sense. So these are our 5 main components of our framework that we like to highlight with students to think about, like, what can you really gain from a study abroad experience? So my own study abroad experience, I'll highlight a career exploration component. When I was a study abroad student, I thought I wanted to go into an art restoration program, postgraduate, things along those lines, thought that I wanted to get into that kind of field. And I actually had the opportunity to take a class in art restoration. And I realized that, like, sitting over a piece of artwork for 5 hours at a time, working on like something that was a postage square stamp size, wasn't exactly my idea of fun. So it was a great opportunity. Study abroad was a way for me to explore a potential career idea that I had, and then realize actually that's not what I wanted to do. So that's just one of the many areas that we want to encourage students to think about, not just like, I want to go someplace fabulous, I want to study abroad, but like, really, what can you get out of that study abroad experience? For some of our students, in terms of personal growth, they might not have cooked for themselves before. They might not have commuted to class before. They might need to navigate a foreign train system on their own. So all of those sort of life skills that students are going to need in their, adult life are things that study abroad really can cultivate, push them outside of their comfort zone, the comfort zone of Villanova, and force them to learn to navigate challenging situations, new environments, work with folks from various points of view, various cultures and perspectives. And again, it's just a really, we like to use our framework to talk about both the possibilities and then also when our students return, sort of reflect back on kind of what next, what have I learned, but then also what can I do next with my study abroad experience. And that's where we really add in that social impact component, encouraging students to think about what their actions are overseas, thinking about the wider community that we're part of, the global community that we're a part of, and how can they use their study abroad experiences to create positive change for not just our Villanova community back on campus after they've returned, but also, a wider global community. So I'm going to go into just a general overview of some of our other statistics and numbers and things like that. We are actually sending a little over 750 students abroad each year, and we are actually back to our pre-COVID participation rates, and that I'll share with you on the next slide. But I also want to share with you this chart. Now, this chart indicates the percentage of students that have participated in a study abroad. Now you can see with our class of 2020, that was the last class of students that weren't impacted by COVID. They had a pretty typical, other than their senior year, as opportunities for study abroad. So our class of 2020, we have 36% of the class of 2020 participated in at least a summer program. Now, the national average is under 10%. So the national average of US undergraduate students is under 10%. So Villanova is surpassing, even with our current rates of participation, really surpassing the general US undergraduate participation rate in study abroad. We're creeping back up there with the class of 2024. This is the most recent graduating class. I suspect by next year, our class of 2025, we will be back closer to that 36%, maybe even closer to the 40% participation rate. And again, that's students going abroad for at least a summer program. Now, the second metric there is actually something that is part of the Career Center's outcomes survey that they send to all graduating seniors and undergraduate graduating seniors. And they ask students, if you sought an international experience, were you able to participate in one? And so you can see again that the class of 2020, 93% of students who sought an international experience were actually able to participate in an international experience. And we've been inching our way back up. Not exactly where we want to be quite yet, but 81% is a great metric from the class. I think class of 2022 is probably around 20%, right? So we're definitely inching our way back up post-COVID. We'll go to our next slide too and show you really that big old COVID dip. And so you can see we're right back where we were in terms of participation rates in sheer numbers of students. So the yellow is our College of Engineering. The green, second one down, is our College of Nursing. Arts and science students, we actually don't break it up by arts and by sciences, but in this particular chart, but I'd say about 2/3 of those students are arts and 1/3 are probably science students. And then we have our School of Business students in that blue. And so again, you can really see that we're right back to where we were pre-COVID. And I would say for academic year 23-24, we have the largest number of students abroad this fall. We have 246 students abroad this fall. That's almost 100 more students that we had abroad last fall. So I will tell you that for next year, if you're attending this presentation again, the next year, the numbers will definitely be closer to that 800 mark. So again, we really are seeing those numbers increase as we really, things go back to normal as much as possible post-COVID. So the biggest question we always get from students is, well, when can I go abroad? And what's the timeline? So there are some variances, and oftentimes a lot of the questions that we answer to students, is the answer to it. Their questions are, well, it depends. So it really does depend for our undergraduate students. It really does depend on their major and what college they're in. our School of Business students can actually study abroad as early as the spring of their freshman year, their first year. So we have a program with the School of Business that's been running for over 20 years called the Global Citizens Program, where students do coursework in Sydney and then an internship in Singapore. So that's the first time that really students can go abroad, at least within VSB. Now, most VSB students will wrap up their study abroad opportunities kind of through junior year. So the spring of junior year is usually the last time we see most of our VSB students go abroad. For our class students or our College of Arts and Science students, they can usually go abroad. Well, really, the summer after their first year will be the first time for all majors other than the Global Citizens Program to go abroad. So the summer after first year is a great time for first year students to have an international experience. They might not need a job that summer or might not have one of those internships that summer. So it's a great time for them to go abroad. But for semester-based, our class students will go abroad sophomore year through really fall of senior year. Though that's rare, it does happen, particularly for some of our pre-health students. The highlighted time for them to go abroad is fall of senior year in some cases. Our College of Engineering students does depend on major. So for example, our mechanical engineers go abroad the fall or the spring of their junior year, where our chemical engineers will go abroad the spring. Oh no, they'll also go abroad the spring of their junior year. Our electricals will go abroad the spring of their sophomore year or the fall of their junior year, along with our civils. So it does kind of depend on their major as to what time in their curriculum makes the most sense for them. Our College of Nursing students have many opportunities in the summer, and they also have a new opportunity that's a sophomore fall program, where we started with 2 students last fall, and we actually have 18 students studying abroad with the College of Nursing program this fall semester. Students also ask, where can I go? So, and this is not unique, I think, to other universities and study abroad offices. The majority of our students post-COVID really are still studying in Europe. As you can see, that big old blue section is Europe. And that does not mean that we don't have opportunities in other regions and in other areas of the world. It does not mean that those areas are unsafe or that students can't get classes that they need. It just means that our students are choosing in bigger numbers to study abroad in European locations. We've been trying to crack away at trying to find academic matches that meet students' needs in a wider variety of locations to allow them to encourage thoughts of moving outside of Europe. And we have had some success, particularly in Australia and in locations in Asia. So those are slowly post-COVID, really, we've seen this even more so shift towards a Europe study abroad participation. I think our students are looking for opportunities to also travel and to experience a wide variety of different cultures. But I always tell them, any location that you study, you'll be able to travel and see other places and see unique locations. So just being in Europe doesn't mean that that's exclusive. That's the only place you can travel. So that's just to give you an example of sort of where our students are currently studying. Again, we do hope to diversify that a little bit more in the coming years. And yep, okay, great, thank you. So I also want to highlight, and this kind of leads into Levi's section of the discussion where he'll be talking about more specific Villanova programs. But I wanted to kind of give you a highlight or like an entry point into that conversation to show you the sheer number of students that are participating in the various different types of programs that Levi will be talking about. So in that 62 number, we have our Villanova Intensive Course Abroads or Maymesters. Intensive Course Abroads are a 3-credit program that runs in either May or usually in the summer sometime, but either May. We have one that runs in July. There are 3-credit programs. They're standalone. Students may do some coursework ahead of time, but the bulk of the academic component is fit into 2 to 3 weeks abroad. So those are our intensive course abroads. Our Villanova summer programs Those are primarily faculty led. So they're faculty members who travel with our students to various locations from Mexico to Singapore. Our faculty travel with the students. Oftentimes they teach a class for our students. And then and those summer programs are usually 6 credits. So it's 6 weeks, 6 credits. So a little bit longer of a program. Some of our programs, summer programs also include an internship or a work experience abroad, combining a course with an internship experience. But for the most part, most of our summer programs are 6 weeks, 6 credits. There is one program that's 9 weeks, or it's 10 weeks, 9 credits. So it's a little bit longer of a program, a little bit more intensive of an experience. Villanova also coordinates some of our own semester-based programming. So we have partner programs. I'm not going to steal Levi's thunder, but like we have partner programs in Ireland. That's one of our longest standing programs. We send a large number of students on Villanova coordinated programs. But in the semester, I'd say one of the largest, we are sending the majority of our students, probably about 2/3 based on the chart, 2/3 of our students on our partner programs. And that really allows us to send our students pretty much anywhere in the world. So even though Villanova may not have a program in a particular location that we've coordinated and put together the coursework or send a faculty with or anything along those lines, our students still have the ability to study in any variety of locations. As long as there's not a US State Department travel advisories, right? Our students really can study in locations all over the world through our partner program network. So I think that's one of the really nice and unique things about Villanova's study abroad program is that our students aren't restricted just to Villanova programs. Again, we have like this wide partner network that allows them to study in India or in Buenos Aires or, any place that really does allow them to meet their academic needs, to meet their interests, to meet those professional and personal goals. So again, that partner network is a strong part of our study abroad programming here at Villanova. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Levi, and he's going to talk get a little bit more specific into those various programs that are available to your students.
Sure. Thanks, Liz. And again, thank you everybody for being here. And taking your time out of your evening, or I guess depending on where you are, late afternoon, to learn more about our opportunities. Liz was talking about the when of study abroad, and I think you'll see over the next few slides how these programs fit into that. She's already alluded to, how we structure our programs, and my goal is to go a little bit more in depth with what we actually offer. One of the things Liz said is, unique. You'll hear distinct. Villanova, as a university and how we conduct our programming, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. There are many, many opportunities through many of our partners, and they're really fantastic opportunities. But we also feel that if we have a connection to a university, if there's a faculty member who has certain academic connections, if there's a history with a place, we want to take advantage of those resources and create programs of distinction. And I also think, just sort of setting the stage for programming, study abroad can be such a huge leap for students. I mean, we see students that have traveled a lot with their families. Maybe they had an exchange experience in high school. We also see students who may not have left their city, may not have left their region. Coming to Villanova may feel like study abroad because it is such a jump outside the comfort zone. And so you'll also see that our programming really tries to meet students where they are. I think that is through the length of time that we offer, May terms, semester, summer, year long. But I also think it is also how we conduct our programs. Villanova faculty led. You have faculty with you potentially teaching, something that maybe the students want that Villanova feel. They will have that with a faculty led program versus students that maybe want a more independent experience can go a different route. And so again, setting the stage for what we offer. This is our list of Villanova semester programs, and we have some that have been around for quite some time and some that are a little bit newer. I'll just go down the list. I don't want to spend too much time getting in the weeds on these specific programs, and I would encourage everybody to go to our website, passport.villanova.edu. When you log in there, you're going to see a couple of tiles, and on those tiles, you'll see programs, you'll see getting started, you'll see all of these different resources. If you find these programs, which they're pretty easy to find on our website, you'll really be able to get into the details. I would say University of Galway, that partnership is, as Liz mentioned, it's been going on forever. I don't know how long ago it was started, but it's predates both of us working here. It's probably our most comprehensive program. It really offers an opportunity for students to get into a local university and really have a pretty expansive academic catalog to choose from. We send engineers there. It has very, very strong STEM sciences, sort of a you name it, they can offer it sort of thing. So that's probably the most broad program. And I'm just going to go kind of left to right. And then you go from like University of Galway, which students are living with local students. They're in a wonderful town. You go to another town in Ireland. There's that strong Irish connection at Villanova. But you have a program specifically for nursing students where we've partnered with a program where they can go their fall semester sophomore year and literally take a curriculum that locks in perfectly with their Villanova four-year curriculum. As Liz mentioned, this is huge. Last year we had 2 students. This year we had 18. Up until last fall, there was only one sort of academic year opportunity for our nursing majors, and that was a year away. And as you can imagine, many students their sophomore year didn't want to be gone for the whole year. And so this is a real win for us. And it also shows that there's always this sort of forward thinking of how can we better serve our students? Can we do something? Can we partner with somebody? Can we find a program that has strong curricular matches? And that's always going to pervade the conversations that we have internally, but also with our students, you know, that study abroad aspect of how can you fit your major, your professional career goals into study abroad. All right, so then you come over to the VSB Business and Culture and the Italian Context program. We call it BCIC. We've had a long presence in Urbino, Italy, going back to a summer program, and we've since developed semester programming. This is a very, very distinct program for the business school. It's a sophomore year spring semester program, and we have 30 spots, and it fills very quickly. Now, for first year's parents of first year students attending right now, your students will be hearing some promotion coming out in the coming months about this program for recruitment for next year. It is a very competitive program, and they'll seek some promotion coming out. It's very popular, and I think this desire to have a program that locks in perfectly to that four-year curriculum is really what's driving the enrollment on that. Similar to the Global Citizen program that was mentioned earlier, that's a first-year program. The curriculum really locks in so that students aren't falling behind academically, and that's a big thing for us. You know, we say it is study abroad, and we work with students to make sure they're getting the courses they need, the credit to transfer the right way. So there's a lot of academic advising going on when we're going through the portfolio of program opportunities. Catholic University of Lille, this is sort of our flagship French language program. Students that are studying French, it's a very, very nice sized town, sort of equidistant to a bunch of really great places in France and Belgium. I think Paris is like an hour away. You know, it's easy to get to the train. But when they're in Lille, they're getting a very authentic French experience, strong coursework in French, language acquisition, living with locals. There's also a really cool second program that we've developed out of this location, which allows political science students to do a certificate program at a specific sort of college within the Catholic University. And so those that maybe don't have the strong French opportunity in the background can also look at that program. We're going to bounce back over to Urbino for the Communication and Marketing in Italy program. This is a fall semester sophomore year program. And I believe it goes, also juniors can potentially do that. Is that, yeah, I see Liz nodding. Yep. And this is kind of opening it up in an attempt to bridge the connection between arts and sciences and business, and allowing students to do not quite as heavy of a business program in, and again, a really wonderful location. If you're not sure where Urbino is, if you kind of think of it as like the back kind of the heel of Italy. It's sort of like the back ankle. We have a resident director in that location who also conducts the program, hires all of our staff. Same with Ireland, we have a resident director in Galway to make sure that students are okay when they're there and sort of being watched over by that Villanova eye. Really, really interesting opportunity. And then I'll finish this semester slide up. But the Vatican Internship Program, the United Nations Vatican Internship Program, this, when you talk about distinct programming, I mean, to me, this one really really rises to the top. This is specifically for communication and computing science students. Students, no joke, have the opportunity to work with the United Nations in Rome, work with the Vatican, do communication, media, production. I mean, it's programming for the Holy See website, a lot of different things. Way back when the program started, they were given exclusive access to all the chapels in Rome, and they film these 360 tours, and you know, just the opportunities they have there are very, very interesting, also very competitive. So when a student comes to us and starts working through this process, we will indicate program might be competitive, might fill up quickly. This is what you need to have in terms of academic backgrounds, and often that guides the when I should go abroad. I think we covered the Global Citizens Program all right here. And then the last program is the Honors Program in Cambridge. We have a strong partnership with the Institute for Economic and Political Studies, which allows students to, honors students specifically, to study at, I mean, you might have heard of Cambridge, right? It's one of the most exclusive universities in the world. And students take classes with other Villanova students, other local students, have access to the local facilities, and yeah, it's like I said, that's one of the honors programs that we worked with the program there. All right, so now we're going to move on to faculty-led programs. Probably not going to go as in depth because we do have quite a wide array of summer programs, and it's interesting when you looked at that pie chart of Villanova versus affiliated programs. One of the things we often hear is, "Well, I feel like I should do a Villanova program because it'll be better." Well, that might be a relative thing to say. What I would counter with is Villanova programs, again, offer very distinct experiences, but we really like to ensure that students have opportunities around the globe to fit those academic interests. As it happens, our Villanova programs are very strong. Our portfolio of opportunities year after year, generally the programs fill. What we're really trying to do is focus on certain academic and professional opportunities. Internships are very, very popular with our students. I think it's a great way to test the waters. Like Liz said, you know, maybe I don't want to do art restoration after doing that. Giving students the opportunity to explore career goals, career interests in somewhat of a kind of a low stress environment. It's a resume boost, obviously. And what we're starting to see with students, I'm seeing this anecdotally with advising, is that students are also just trying to find different ways to meet people. I think doing an internship gets you out of that student bubble and allows you to meet people in just a different way. And those intercultural, kind of cross-cultural connections can be a little bit more distinct, again, because it's not just with students. So we have a couple of different programs. I will highlight that if anybody is coming to the family weekend on September 28th, which is Saturday, the early year experience in Dublin and London will have a specific info session. I've got a slide with locations and times and all of that, but that is something that initially started as a first year program, and we've since opened it up to first and second year programs as a way to offer that early career opportunity. What we also see is students doing internships often change their major, or they're able to maybe define a little bit better within their major what they want to study when they come away with that professional experience. And honestly, I think it looks really cool on a resume when students go to an internship or a job opportunity and have the opportunity to speak about, I interned in Sydney or Singapore or London. So going from the professional, which those programs generally work for most of our students, we like to offer internships in a wide array of areas. We're getting into language programs, and that was always the core of study abroad, dating way back. So we have some very strong programs that offer Spanish language immersion, French language immersion, language and indigenous studies, Again, always trying to utilize the resources we have in these locations to really build strong programs. So students can come away after 4 or 6 weeks and say, yeah, I became very proficient in those languages. Should be noted that these, because they are faculty-led, students will go through a process where they meet with a faculty member to interview for the program. That faculty member will ultimately accept them to this program. And then that faculty member will conduct a series of kind of lead up meetings, pre-departure orientations in anticipation for the actual on-site experience where that faculty member will be there for most of the time of the program. And so it really allows students to build a rapport with the faculty member, but also have that security of knowing that that person will be in country for most of the time. Going with the culture programs, you can see the list here. Augustinian in Architecture in Italy. This is an every other year program. It happens to be running this year. Very distinct for our few, I think it's civil engineers is really what it's focused on. We have a program in Rome that focuses more on economics and culture. You can read the list here. Very, very distinct. These are faculty members coming from Nova, teaching their expertise in a country where they have expertise. And it really, I think the learning really becomes alive, being able to have a faculty member who has, this vast experience in Prague or in Greece, and to be able to teach their expertise there. Intensive courses abroad. Liz did touch on this. I don't know if there's much I need to say more than these are kind of meeting students where they are. These are the shortest of our programs. For a while, we were a little bit resistant to doing such short-term programming. We really thought that, doing a 5-6 week program was kind of the sweet spot for cultural immersion. But what we started to find is there was this demand for shorter-term programming. Students are doing a lot. Their summers are busy. Maybe they're going into an internship. But also, we look at these as an intensive deep dive into a course. It's almost it's really a very deep academic immersion into whatever subject is being taught, whether it's global political econ in the Asia Pacific, international accounting in Ireland, global supply chain management in Iceland. As you go through your time here at Villanova, if you're a first-year parent, you may see the portfolio programs change as we have faculty coming to us with different ideas. It's a little bit easier to pull off these programs as they're 2 weeks, and so you see kind of a changing cast of characters in that space. And then this is actually the College of Professional Studies has a really, really cool program, European Innovation Academy in Portugal. It's a 4-week July semester program. I should say that, but it happens in July, and students get to basically create a business, early business, and promote it. And it's a competition that ends in somebody winning an award for coming up with the best entrepreneurship idea of the program. So again, I mentioned this earlier, distinct programming, very unique programming. These are programs we're very, very proud of. But then when you look at that breakdown of, well, I want to do a Villanova program versus partner, it really is almost a 50-50 split of students doing Nova programs versus students doing our partners. So as your student starts to explore these opportunities and they meet one-on-one with the advisors in our office, you might hear names like Arcadia or Boston University and think, well, that's weird. My son or daughter, they applied to those schools, right? Well, they also function as really nice study abroad providers, almost like a third-party business. This is a list of our programs that I often joke that we work in an alphabet soup: IES, CIE, DIS, USAC. But what these programs represent are very well-respected nonprofit organizations that have gone around the globe and developed partnerships with local universities, or they've set up centers where US students can study. And this is where we are really able to offer the world. I just went through our program offerings. We don't have anything in Africa yet. Our Latin American programs are minimal. I mean, Mexico. So how do we do it? We do it through these partnerships. And this is where it admittedly can get a little confusing for a student because there's so many options. And when we bring it back to those core principles of what do you want to do when you go abroad, and the foundational ideas that we have for study abroad, we always connect it to, well, what do you want to study? And let's look at those programs. And we're always going to be challenging students while saying, DIS, it's a very well-respected and strong partnership. It's not just a one-off. Boston University has great internship programs. I think you should look at that. And that's where the expertise of our advisors really comes into play to try and really be those matchmakers. And I think we often use the expression, cast your net out wide to a student. Don't just go with what you may have visited in the past. Don't go with what your friends are going to, but let's take a look at everything and sort of see what you bring back. And it might be that a program through CIEE maybe does fit a student better than a Villanova program. We're not necessarily numbers commission driven. So we don't have to sell our programs because we need to. We promote our programs because we feel like it's the best for the student. Again, you can see here passport.villanova.edu. I'll just say it all day long, passport.villanova.edu. But that is really the best place to go to get a great introduction to all of the resources that we have within the OEA. All right, let's take a turn because I'm sure many of you are wondering about the costs associated with study abroad. And so what I have here is a chance to explain what our two different kind of payment structures are, one for summer, one for semester. Now at Villanova, we are what you would call a homeschool tuition policy school. What that means is students that study abroad will pay Villanova tuition. And what we will do is then pay the tuition amount to that program or provider that the student has selected. And if you can see here on the screen, generally speaking, most financial aid a student brings into Villanova is going to transfer with that study abroad program. I will say that if you were told, if you received, your son or daughter or your student received a scholarship that didn't work for study abroad, it's most likely going to be said, this will not work, and you'll be explicitly told that. What this allows is a real level playing field where everybody has the opportunity to study abroad. It allows us to look at programs around the world and really offer that academic connection without having to worry as much about the money side of things. So you get one bill from Villanova, and that's a normal bill billed to the Villanova student account. Every semester it comes out usually, in July and I think in maybe November. The second bill that will be your student will receive or you will receive is going to be for the non-tuition expenses. Those are going to be things like room, board. Those are really the two primary things, right? Your food and your housing. Could also, include gym memberships, your cell phones, your books, all of those things. I often use the analogy with my students. It feels like living off campus. If you lived off campus here at Villanova, you'd still pay Villanova tuition. And then your landlord in study abroad would be the program, right? That CIE or the DIS, and they would charge you for the housing and any additional non-tuition fees. One thing to be noted, and I mentioned this, but the financial aid package should travel with you. We work very, very closely with the Office of Financial Assistance. We work very closely with our students to discuss budgets and understanding the costs of study abroad. We work very closely with students to identify scholarships and additional funding, whether it's through a partner, whether it's through Villanova, so that as they go through this process, they understand there will potentially be costs and how can they cover those expenses. And the financial aid office at Villanova is wonderful in being able to make sure that the current financial aid package is able to be adjusted so that it reflects Paris expenses or Buenos Aires expenses or Galway expenses and not mainline Pennsylvania expenses. Obviously there's a lot of moving parts with this side of the process, and our office is really going to be driving that conversation with your student so that, when they do get on the plane, everything really will be a seamless process with their financial assistance and scholarship opportunities. All right, so if we go over to summer programs, a little bit more simple. I'm not going to lie. It's summer programs are shorter term, and essentially what you will pay is whatever the program fee is. So if it's a Villanova program, our programs will post all of the fees on our website, both the program fee and an estimated breakdown of additional expenses, so students can budget for the airfare, for the additional meals, travel, personal expenses, things like that. That is a bill that will go right to the Villanova student account and will be due when we say it's due, essentially. Now with the partner programs, CIEs, the DISs, the BUs, you'll pay that program directly. And then on top of that, Villanova will charge a $500 administrative fee. Financial assistance doesn't transfer over summer programs. So it does add potentially a little bit more expense to kind of that 8-semester Villanova 4-year curriculum. But we still will work with students to identify scholarship opportunities, loans if necessary, to ensure that if they are doing a short-term program, they can still find additional funding if necessary. But I will say, if financials are of concern, the semester programs tend to be a little bit stronger with getting a little bit more additional funding, because financial aid goes with, and it just seems like there are additional scholarships out there for semester that just don't exist for summer. But again, we want to meet students where they are. We want to meet students where they are financially, academically, and that's why we do have all of these different program options and discussions about the finances to make sure they can make informed decisions. Stop talking money for a minute. Talk about pragmatic stuff, right? All right, so getting started, that's also a huge question. We have postcards that we bring almost to every office, every event, and it's a get started postcard. And it essentially looks like this. QR codes are cool again, so feel free to scan it. It'll take you right to our passport.villanova.edu website. Getting started and the study abroad process is not difficult. Anybody that says it is, I'll argue with them. But it's not something that needs to be waited on. All right. So if you have students that are interested, I would absolutely tell them, get started with the process, attend an information session. We run them 9 times a week by our global ambassadors, former students who run them. After that, they just kind of get pulled into our process through passport.villanova, doing the advising applications, meeting with advisors, selecting a program. We're there all the way through with them. It's a very individualized experience. And I would usually say they should give about a year. And, if they're giving a year, starting the process about a year out, that's really the ideal timeline. All right. And then this will be the last slide before we go into some question and answers. If there are any questions, we'll have the answers. Couple of things. If you're interested, we have a professional publication from NAFSA, our professional organization, What Families Need to Know. It's a really nice resource. If you have concerns, kind of those parent, sponsor, family questions. If you'd like a copy of this, abroad@villanova.edu, shoot us an email, send us your address. We'd be happy to get you one. No problem at all. And then this is our family weekend schedule coming up next weekend, actually. I kind of went with the stoplight system here, the greens and reds, because we have 4 different information sessions, 2 of which at the top are for everybody, more or less. This session is kind of a pared down version that we're doing right now of what we will be doing next Saturday. It's an hour session located in the cinema. It's a really nice session. You'll hear less us, more students talking. So we bring in some return students to talk about their experiences. And that program or that session tends to get pretty packed. So I would recommend trying to get there a little bit early to get a spot. Otherwise you might be standing. From 11 to noon, the London Dublin early year experience that I mentioned earlier, the internship program that we have for 1st and 2nd year students, that'll be right after the 10 o'clock information session. And so it'll just be a revolving door. And usually during that time, a few OEA staff will walk out so that if you do have questions, we can get you out of the cinema from that first session, chat with you outside while the second session starts. The red, these are for families of accepted students to the Global Citizens Program and to the BCIC program. I wanted to put that out there just in case we had some families that had students in that category. All of this is on the Villanova Family Weekend schedule. I pulled it right off of it. So the dates, the locations, the times are all there. And thank you to Karita specifically for helping organize these sessions. It seems like it's organizing cats to get everything together, and she's done a really wonderful job for that weekend. All right, so now I think if there were any question and answers, I'll stay in the back. Liz can come back and we can answer those questions.
Right. And I would just maybe ask the audience if you have, just out of respect for your students, let's try to keep these a little bit more broad in nature. If you have specific questions about, where you're at financially or where your student is academically, I encourage you to use that abroad@villanova.edu for those specific questions, just to make sure that, we have our students in mind. But one question that I kind of would love to tee this off with, if you don't mind, is, what's there, the options are amazing. And I'm, drooling over here at where you can go in this world. But what's one or two, or maybe the top two things that you encourage students to really think about when they're trying to hone in on a decision? That they're ready to go, but what do they need? What are two things that they should consider, or families should maybe discuss with their students as they're trying to make this global decision?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we could distill it down to two things, right? I'd kind of lean back into our framework a little bit, and bringing it back into your academics, what do you want to accomplish? What are you hoping to do? I think I often tell students too, and maybe this is when they're particularly comparing a couple of different program options. I tell them, well, like, make a list of the things that are important to you. What do you think you want to get out of your study abroad? So whether that's, I want to make sure I'm taking a finance class, or I want to be able to roll out of bed and go to class. I don't want to have to commute. Whatever those things are that they think they might be that might be important to them in their study abroad experience, write them all down on one side, and then use those parameters to kind of compare and contrast the different programs that they're looking at, because that will really help them. I think there are a lot of options, right? And that will really help them hone in on, do I want to be with other Villanova students? Do I want to be on a short-term program? Do I want a semester-based? Do I want a small city? Do I want a big town? Do I want all of those things? And like in some instances, like students don't even know what they want. So that's okay too. I mean, and that's sort of where we're here to sort of help talk them through like the different opportunities or options, or like, what does this mean? Like, if you choose this program, you are going to be on a train for 40 minutes every morning. And like, is that okay for you? Because that's not what your life is like here. Or alternatively, like if you end up in Urbino, like you're going to walk to class with 30 of your fellow Villanova students. So it's really like kind of talking to your students and trying to encourage them to think about what they really are looking to get out of the experience, and how far they want to kind of push their comfort zone too. So that's not really two things, but that's like a number of different strategies or ways that families can approach the conversation with their students as they're like looking at the various different options and the different variables that are associated with all of the programs that are out there.
Yeah, I like that day-to-day component. I think the idea of the broad stroke of like, I love this city, but
what does it mean to live there?
What does that mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's
so,
great.
I mean, a lot of our students really are going abroad for and living abroad in a place, particularly semester students, for the first time on their own. So like there are ups and downs, there are realities that sink in after a while. It is not all glorious. Like there are, we do say, and I think we're talking to parents now, but we do say that there is crying in study abroad. So that is part of it. Our students don't get that reference too much anymore, which is unfortunate. We've lost that cultural touch point, but I know that our families will get that.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like that is, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be challenges and hardships. And, it's not all the glorious Instagram posts that they see from all their friends, or all of the photos and all that kind of stuff. It's not all magical. It is challenging, just like they are when they have challenges when they're here on campus. So it's, it's supporting your student through that as well. And acknowledging too, that like, whatever you choose, whatever your student chooses, to like lean into it, to own it. It's their experience. They're the ones that will be traveling. They're the ones that will physically be living in that space for the semester or for the summer. So you want to encourage find ways to encourage them to own their experience, whatever they choose.
Right. There are a couple of business related questions. One related to math majors. Are there programs that kind of fit nicely for math majors with a business focus? And then also, tying into that with accounting, is accounting a feasible major for any of the programs?
Yes. So I'm going to direct folks to our passport.villanova.edu page. And on that page, and I think I can put this in the chat. But on that page, passport.villanova.edu, there's a little blue box that says major advising pages. And this has been an ongoing project in our office and Levi's been really spearheading this, working with the different academic departments to identify programs of excellence, or programs that the department really says, like, these will work well for our students. So you can go in there, and most majors are represented at this time. We still are working on a handful of other majors. So if you don't find your student's major listed there, you can reach out to us at abroad@villanova.edu. But a lot of our majors, particularly our engineering majors, our science, our STEM students, a lot of those are addressed there. There is a major advising page for accounting. It is true at this time that accounting students cannot take accounting classes abroad, but you do want to be aware that your accounting student, the majority of their curriculum and degree requirements is not in accounting. So the Clay Center, we work really closely with the Clay Center and the Clay Center advisors to help students rework their schedule to maybe their senior year of spring is a little bit harder, but they still were able to squeeze in a study abroad by saving their histories, their social sciences, maybe some other classes that, like, they can kind of save for a study abroad. And so complete degree requirements just maybe shift things around a little bit in the order in which they take them. So that's kind of how we approach majors that can be a little bit more difficult to go abroad. That is how we approach some of our engineering students as well. Like, you're not going to follow the exact same path that students here on campus would, but you're going to follow it close enough that you can still complete your degree requirements on time. You can still graduate on time with everything that you need to do. It just shifts things around in when you take what.
If you don't mind, Liz, I'm just going to chime in here
Levi.
too. The primary cohort of students that I advise, I work with most of our CLAS students, and I see a number of science majors, pre-health, pre-med. And so what Liz would just touched on is actually, it's really, really true in terms of sequencing. That can be one of the biggest challenges for many of these majors. And so when I said starting early, if your student is a STEM major in particular, or doing the pre-health track, which you could be a business major going pre-med, right? That is definitely something that they're gonna, if they're interested in study abroad, they should really start as early as possible, because there will be very distinct challenges with certain classes that you might have to take a class over the summer. I don't want that to happen, but in order to make a semester work, sometimes that is the reality. Or adjusting curriculums to, move things around. Our academic advisors, our academic departments are very supportive of study abroad. I'm in constant contact on an almost daily basis, sometimes with biology, with our chemistry chair, with our math department, because these are the folks that are also approving the classes our students take for credit. So this idea that they can't go abroad and do their major abroad, that's completely false. We're having all of the academics vetted by faculty. They're given Villanova equivalency so students can get the credit. So, that analogy of it takes a village, it really takes a big community. And we're so fortunate that the registrar supports us, the bursar supports us, the academic departments to make this happen for majors that are historically underrepresented in study abroad. I think we do that part of study abroad really, really well.
All right, we have about 2 minutes left here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to do a quick plug for some upcoming programs that we have. I'm going to steal that mic. But during Family Weekend, which is the 27th, I can't believe I bumbled that for a minute, because that's all I can think about right now. It's the 27th through the 29th, as Levi and Liz talked about. There'll be several programs that you can learn a little bit more about, hear more specifics about the programs from a student perspective, which I think is really very helpful to hear how students navigated those, those intro sessions and how they got started, and then how they navigated over in their experience abroad. I encourage you all to follow along at Villanova Parent and Family. We'll be announcing some other upcoming events for us. In the meantime, specific questions about your student and what their goals may be can always be directed to abroad@villanova.edu. But as with everything, we really encourage your student to take this on themselves. So having those conversations with your students now is fantastic, and really encouraging them to take those steps. We can do so much of the conversation behind the scenes, but as Liz talked about and Levi talked about several times, this is their great experience. This is their great adventure. So, doing this homework in the beginning is really important for them to get started on. So thank you guys so much for your time. I apologize. The light is disappearing. So I think they're trying to pull the curtain down on me here. But thank you all, families, for being here. We're always an email away, so please use it. I'm at parents@villanova.edu, and my friends here are abroad at villanova.edu. Thanks so much. We hope to see you during family weekend at some point. If not, we'll stay connected. Take care, everybody. Good night.